of the same day. The vessel is currently anchored at a mooring site in Yeongdo-gu, Busan. It is reported that the ship is carrying coal and iron ore with about 10 crew members on board. Specific details of the sanctions violations the vessel is involved in are not yet known. The Busan Regional Office of Oceans and Fisheries said today that it will hold the 2024 Summer Lighthouse Marine School on July the 2nd to celebrate the first Lighthouse Week in South Korea. Lighthouse Week in South Korea will run from July the 1st to the 7th, commemorating World Marine Aids to Navigation Day with various lighthouse cultural events held nationwide. This summer's Lighthouse Marine School is open to the general public, including middle school students and above. Participants will have the opportunity to experience Kadokdo Lighthouse, located in the military protection area, normally restricted to the public, and attend a special lecture by Professor Kim Gi-soo, president of the Korea Modern Architecture Preservation Association and director of the Seokjang Museum at Donga University. In international news, Louisiana has become the first U.S. state to mandate that every public school classroom up to the university level display a poster of the Ten Commandments. The law signed by Governor Jeff Landry states that the commandments are the foundational documents of our state and national government, quote-unquote. The civil rights groups are expected to challenge the law, arguing it violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, which separates church and state. And now taking a quick look at the weather here. It's currently 24 degrees Celsius under cloudy skies with a chance of showers from tonight. Air quality is in the good levels. And that'll have to do it for this hour's news. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to BEFM Busan 영어방송.
Your best choice. BEFM Busan 영어방송.
Coming up next is 2 p.m. Reboot with Casey McKeever. BEFM Busan 영어방송.
You're running late. You're really in a hurry. And you don't want to be late today. You got up early. You tried to get a head start out the door, but nothing is working out, and now you've got no time for driving slowly. But you know the route, you even know which way is the fastest to go. And I bet you know the timing of the lights. Everything's going all right until you see a yellow traffic light. If you stop here, it's going to ruin your timing. What do? Do you speed up through the yellow light? Well, that's one of the things we're going to talk about today on the 2 p.m. Reboot with Casey McKeever. It is Thursday, June 20th, 2024. Let's get the show started. Welcome back to the 2 p.m. Reboot with Casey McKeever. You just listened to Electric Touch by Arizona. The lyrics suggest that the speaker and the person they are addressing have something that's unresolved between them. Ooh, one of those situations. And they both feel the same way about each other. The call to pause all these words and not go down like this is an indication that there might have been some kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding. Ouch, hate when that happens. But the speaker wants to put all of that aside and focus on what they both really want to be together. Oh, nice. The phrase electric touch is used metaphorically to describe the intensity and the attraction between the two. The speaker seems to be asking the other person not to worry about the distance between them and just be present in the moment. Easier said than done, right? Being present in the moment. Well, in this moment, you are listening to the 2 p.m. Reboot on BEFM 90.5 in Busan and 103.3 FM in Gijang, Jeongwan, and Noksan areas. In Seoul, we're on TBS EFM 101.3 FM, and in Gwangju, we're on GFN 98.7 FM. Thanks for joining us wherever you may be. I am your host, Casey McKeever. We've got a lot coming up on the show today. In hour number 1 for Hot Off the Press, we're going to have 2 new songs. Of course, we do this every day, Monday through Friday. We bring you some hot new tracks, give you some background about the artist and some information about the song. Then coming up after that, we've got Parenting 101 with Cheryl. We do this every Thursday, and Cheryl always comes in and talks about childcare, being a parent, and we share our experiences as parents together. I always enjoy that. This is like my therapy session, my Thursday therapy session with Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl, for being such a good listener and also having a lot of things for me to think about. I want to be a good parent too, so I appreciate that. Then in hour number 2, we're going to have our daily list. A lot of times we have a top 10, best, top 10, worst. Today's topic, something very serious actually. Common driving mistakes that put you in danger. So these are bad things to avoid and important to talk about because I see a lot of these things as I'm driving out and about. Inside Korea, we'll follow that. And this is where we talk about some important stories or things happening in the country we live in, of course, which is Korea. So we're going to talk about driving as one of those topics. What to do when the yellow light comes on. Yes, I can see when I'm out there driving, people have many different reactions to the yellow light, but is there only one correct one? We'll find out. Then we're also going to talk about some other interesting things that are happening in Korea as well, some culture stuff. But today, our main topic is we're talking about traffic and driving. And at the top of the show, I was talking about that situation where you're in a hurry, you know where you got to go, you know how to get there the right way, how to get there quickly. And then out of the blue, this yellow light comes on and kind of throws everything out of whack. And you're like, oh, no, my timing. So the yellow light, right? What happens when the yellow light comes on in a traffic light? What do you do? That is my question for today. What do you do when the traffic light turns yellow? 신호등이 노란불로 바꿀 때 어떻게 하시나요? So I know there are probably a variety of answers, and feel free to share yours. Maybe this is actually something that is a little bit controversial in Korea. This is why I'm talking about it, because I was reading the news about this exact topic, and I thought, maybe there is a kind of big split between what people think you should do when there's a yellow traffic light. So I'm just curious, what do you usually do? This is just an open forum where we can discuss our honest opinion and our honest actions. And then we'll talk about what's maybe the right thing to do. Let's take a quick song break, though. We're going to listen to Save Me the Trouble by Dan and Shay, and then we'll be back with Hot Off the Press. That was Save Me Trouble by Dan and Shay. Welcome back to the 2 p.m. Reboot. Now it's time for Hot Off the Press, and this is what we do every Monday through Friday. We bring you two of the newest, hottest songs that have just been recently released. And you know, it's kind of hard to keep up. I'll be honest, without Na PD's help, I don't think I could do it. So thank you, Na PD, again for researching what songs are coming out and picking two of the best songs that came out recently. And we're going to give you some background information on them as well. So our first song today is Heat by Tove Lo and S.G. Lewis. The Swedish singer-songwriter Tove Lo and British DJ S.G. Lewis teamed up to release their new collaborative EP Heat just last week. Tove Lo said, "We share a lot of fans in the queer community, and this EP is very much inspired by the energy we feel from the crowd. We met on the dance floor, and I think when we first worked together, we felt that special creative connection that rarely happens. So after making a few songs together that ended up on both our albums, we felt like we had more to give to our mutual fans who, like us, love to dance in sweaty warehouses." So it sounds like that kind of scene where maybe they've converted an old warehouse into a club. Legally or illegally, I'm not sure. I've been to both, but those are fun places to dance. So that'll be our first song. Our second song for today is Muse by Piper Connolly. 13-year-old alt-pop singer-songwriter Piper Connolly released a single called Muse last week. 13, wow, good job. The track presents a relatable message of grappling with one's emotions and making a tough decision, even when it's not the one you hope for. Piper said of the song, "While working on the song, I was inspired by a personal situation. Muse is all about having feelings for someone who didn't feel the same way back." Oh, at 13 already? Oh, bummer. The kicker, though, was that we made an awesome team creatively. I see. So I faced a choice. Let my emotions mess with our vibe or keep pushing forward and make some great stuff. I went with the latter, deciding that our collaboration was more important than my one-sided crush. Oh man, so I guess does the person Piper wrote this about know that the song's written about them? Interesting. Oh, that is definitely inspired by a real situation, a personal situation. I wonder how the other person feels about that. Interesting. So these are our two songs for today for Hot Off the Press. Heat by Tove Lo and S.G. Lewis, followed by Muse by Piper Connolly. Welcome back to the 2 p.m. Reboot. It is now time for Parenting 101, and Cheryl is here in the studio. Good afternoon, Cheryl.
Good afternoon.
Happy to see you on this Thursday.
Always happy to see you.
Yeah.
Always happy to be here.
You brighten my day. Oh, thanks for coming in as always. And you like to share tips about childcare and parenting, and we also like to share our experiences. I think you might experience my hunger.
You might experience mine. My stomach's rumbling a bit too today.
Sometimes we just don't eat when we should, right?
Exactly.
But that's probably not our topic today, right?
No, it's not.
Okay, what are we going to talk about today?
So today we're going to be talking about screen time, which is a big issue for most parents. How much screen time should our children have? How much is too much? Is screen time affecting our children's mental health or changing their behavior?
Right.
All of these are important, but as soon as we try to take those screens away, we know what happens.
I always experience tears. There's a big meltdown, right?
Exactly. When my daughter was younger, she'd have a fit if I took the screen away. It was then that I knew something needed to change. It was like an addiction.
Right.
So today we'll be looking at an article from Yahoo about how to fix the issue of screen time meltdowns.
Okay, so there is a way to fix it. We don't have to just accept that meltdowns are inevitable. Is that what you're here to tell us?
We do not, but they are going to happen.
They are, yeah, you know what? I guess, and because actually I feel like I have a mini meltdown when I am out without my screen for a little bit. I don't cry. I don't yell at anybody, but I notice sometimes I get a little bit irritable.
Or if you misplace your phone.
Oh,
and
yes.
You can't find it
Panic.
for a minute. Yeah, exactly.
So we just have to realize, okay, these are humans as well, and they have not worked out how to deal with these situations that we can't even deal with very well yet, right?
Exactly.
So these things are going to happen. Okay. So what's the reason that they become irritable and moody and emotional after screen time? It's not even their screen half the time. It's my screen.
It's not. Give me my screen back.
I know. I need it back. I got messages.
Especially when they go hiding it somewhere.
Oh, that's the worst. And there's a work message coming that you have to answer. It's like, right.
So, according to the article, certain types of screen use for some kids can cause short-term deficits in executive functions.
Okay, that was a lot of language.
It was.
That was a lot of lengthy language, big
Yes.
words. Okay, so, all right, what are executive functions?
So, those are things like memory, attention spans, and self-regulation.
Okay.
Managing behavior requires those skills, so regulating emotions isn't our kids' strong suit in the moments after the screen time ends.
Okay, but it can't be these executive functions only that affect the behavior and create the meltdowns, right?
Well, it's not. According to the article, there's also the issue of modeling.
Oh, okay.
Kids may copy behaviors that they see on the screen.
Okay, so not my behavior. Good. Okay, don't copy my they probably copy our behavior
They
as
do
well.
that too.
Okay,
Yes.
but this is
Kids are watching everything.
Yeah, it's true, right? And sometimes it's amazing how quickly they pick up on things that you think they don't notice.
Everything.
Right. So in this case, they're not modeling your behavior. They're possibly modeling what they see on the screen.
Exactly.
Okay.
And screen time can also take the place of other activities like physical activity, spending time outdoors, which might have a more positive impact on mood.
Right.
And for some kids, certain types of screen use can cause sensory overstimulation.
Okay.
But of course, the simplest explanation is that screens are enjoyable and it's hard to stop doing things that are fun.
It's true. That's why I have a hard time putting my screens down too, right? Mm-hmm. We're all guilty of this, right?
Yeah.
So we struggle with this as well. Do you struggle with this, do you feel like?
Not as much now that the weather's so good and I'm outside all the time.
Smart. So you replace the screen with outdoor time.
Exactly.
And sunscreen.
A lot of sunscreen.
Right. That kind of screen is good for you, right? Okay. So I obviously still struggle with this myself. So what kind of tips are there to prevent these screen time meltdowns? Because we know what some of the causes are, but what can we do about it?
So experts recommend cutting back on screens. This seems obvious, but if a child is struggling with their mood or behavior after using screens, it might be time to consider reducing screen time or even taking a break.
And this is a little bit easier for my household, I think, because our kids are young enough where they don't have their own phones yet, and they're limited to using ours when we are gracious enough to let them borrow them. But for a lot of parents, that might be hard to do, like if they have their own phones or computers already. And plus, screens are everywhere. So, like, for example, I know this is something a lot of people do. When they drive, they'll just hand a pad of some sort, perhaps, to keep the kids busy so the trip doesn't feel like it's taking forever and they're not like, when are we getting there? I see this all the time, too. At restaurants, people give their kids, especially phones, it seems like, at restaurants to kind of keep them busy watching videos. If we give kids screens and, you know, we can get work done, we can get things done, we can cook dinner, can you actually take screens away from your daughter?
Yeah, when she was younger, I noticed a change in her behavior and also the way she was speaking. And I thought it might be from something that she was watching. So I told her directly that I'd noticed that she was acting differently, and I thought it was because of the tablet and that it was time to take a break from it.
Right.
And when I took the screen away, of course, the result was a huge meltdown. And I realized, yes, she was absolutely addicted to the screen.
Aww.
So I told her we definitely need a break, and I put the tablet away for a few weeks, not even just days, a few weeks. And I noticed that after the tablet was gone, she was calmer, she played with friends more, she played with her toys more.
I'm curious, like, do you think she understood the response that she had? Do you know, like, so you explained it to her each time, like when you were taking it away and you were explaining that you think that's, you actually said, like, I think this is. I
did say that, yeah.
And I think that's good to do. Do you think she understood what you meant, or do you just said it because, you know, you just don't want to take it away?
I said it because it gave a reason for why I was taking away.
Right.
She was really young, so I don't think she understood the total reason why.
Right.
Which is why she had a meltdown.
Of course. I don't care what the reason is.
But it was important to explain.
Right.
I've noticed these changes in you, and I think it's because of the screen. And it's time to stop this.
And I wonder as well, because you noticed a difference after a couple of weeks that she started to engage with people more. I wonder if she, in some level, like, you know, do you think they notice as well?
I think they do.
Yeah.
I think they notice.
Whether it's like a conscious, like, I'm a different person now. But I think maybe they just feel better, right?
I do believe so.
Yeah, I'm going to guess so.
Social connection's so important, especially for children.
Right? So, you know, even whether they can explain it or not or understand your explanation, I think it's key that you did explain why you were taking it away instead of just grabbing it, which I've...
you never.
Yeah, that doesn't work so well.
It's like a dog with a bone.
Right. You know, yeah. And
they're not going to give it up.
Yeah, and also, like we mentioned modeling before.
Yeah.
You're modeling for behavior how to interact with others, right? So if you want to take something from somebody, you should explain why first. So that's key as well. But, you know, not every family is the same. So this might work for your family, but does it work the same for everybody? Like, should it work? I'm going to say work one more time. Is there a different way to do things for people?
So different screen plans work for different families, and a less is more approach might work for one family. But if kids are using screens at the expense of other mind-boosting activities like sleep, time outside and physical activity, then it might be time to cut down.
And again, I totally agree with the idea of like rationally, calmly explaining why you're removing it from your child, why you're removing the screen from your child. But is there another way we can reduce screen time?
So another recommendation is to experiment with different types of media use and content. Sensory experiences are highly individualized. Everything from the colors on the screen to the familiarity with an episode to the soundtrack, even the type of device can make a difference.
Right.
So it's important to find what works and doesn't work for your child. What worked for a friend or family member might not work for your child. So it takes a bit of experimentation to figure out what works.
And I guess that means it's going to take a bit of meltdown as well.
It will, but it's important to stick with it.
Right. I think that's key. Like, don't give up right away, because tears are a normal part of a child's life, unfortunately. Right? They don't really know how to regulate their emotions.
Exactly.
And we're here to help kind of guide them through those difficult times. So just because a child cries, like, doesn't mean like reverse course and completely abandon what you were doing, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So if you notice a change in behavior from the content that your child is watching, do you think it's probably time to block that content, or maybe just explain why it's time to take a break from that type of content?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with my daughter. When I noticed the behavioral changes and speech patterns changing, in her case, the best way to deal with the situation was remove the device altogether.
I know we're not supposed to mention specific programs in many cases, but I think I'm going to ask you off the air. I want to know what she was watching so I can be prepared. And I think that's key too. Like, parents should talk to other parents about these kinds of problems, right? That's a great way to get maybe ideas about what works and what doesn't work. I mean, that's basically what we're doing here.
Exactly.
And, maybe if you find that something worked well with your child, and one of your friends is having the same issue, I hate it, I guess, when other parents tell me what to do and they see my faults. But if you gently kind of be like, hey, I had this situation with my child and this really worked for us, that's a great thing to share, is it not?
The same way that we talk to kids, we can talk to other parents.
Exactly. Gently,
Yes.
right?
Gentle parenting.
Totally. Avoid meltdowns with parents as well, right? So is there anything else you recommend?
So experts also recommend experimenting with different stopping points when it comes to screen use.
So this means that the child usually puts the screen away in this case?
It is. For example, if their screen time regularly ends at the moment that they're about to advance to the next level of their game, a later stopping point might be the answer.
I see.
If screen time is dragging on to a point where they're restless or irritated, stopping earlier is worth a try. The key is flexibility, but not to the point where they're allowed to continue for hours and hours.
So don't be too flexible.
Don't be too flexible.
Gotcha. Well, I tell you what, speaking of stopping, this is a good time to stop and take a quick song break. And this is, I think, something that the kids kind of need to hear. This is We Gotta Get Out of This Place by Grand Funk Railroad. Sometimes put the phone down, get out of the place, right? So we're going to take a quick song break, and then we'll be back with more Parenting 101 with Cheryl. Welcome back, everybody. We're with Cheryl here for Parenting 101, and we're talking about screen time. I think the bane of modern existence for many of us. And we were talking about some ways that you could limit screen time, some ways you could explain carefully to your child that you're going to limit your screen time. And I think the main idea that I was getting is that one thing you need to have with your child concerning screen time is an open dialogue. Would that be right?
It is. Children need to know why their screen time needs to be reduced. Experts recommend picking a time when everyone is calm and discussing post-screen time transitions. So depending on their age, you might open with something like, I've noticed it can feel very hard to turn off the tablet when screen time is over. Why do you think that is? Or what can we do to make it easier? From there, you can brainstorm solutions. This might include suggesting coping skills to try next time they're frustrated that screen time's over.
Right. So don't be like, hey, what's wrong with you? Not like that.
Never.
Never that. Cheryl just looked at me like, how dare you even suggest that? But I mean, sometimes parents lose their patience, especially when they're in public and there's screens involved. We mentioned like the restaurant scenario.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of parents hand over the phone. It's restaurant time. Maybe it's multiple families meeting and the parents want to hang out, talk together. And the kids are just like, I'm bored. I want to get out of here. So I see the phone get handed over, and then when it's time to go, it's like, no, it isn't. And the parents just kind of lose their patience, This is something we have to kind of work through ourselves.
But we've got to understand one thing about boredom.
Yeah.
And that is that boredom is amazing. Whenever my daughter says, oh, I'm so bored,
Yeah.
I say, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you're bored.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because boredom cultivates creativity.
Giving yourself some time to have nothing to do allows your brain to kind of roam.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that the idea?
Exactly.
I have the opposite feeling. I feel like I'm never bored. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always feel like there's something to do. So I actually, when somebody tells me they're bored, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I would be jealous of that. And I understand why you tell your daughter that's a good thing. I think boredom is something we should experience more, actually.
I love it.
Right?
I love it. Yeah.
Like, how can anybody be bored these days? I mean, we're talking about screen time. I never see somebody without some kind of device around them. How could they possibly be bored, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so be bored.
Be bored.
Except right now, listening to us, I hope you're not bored. But yeah, I think boredom is something we need more of these days. But okay, so we were talking about, how to have an open dialogue with your child. And so after you have that dialogue, do you come up with a plan afterwards, or how does that work?
Yeah, experts recommend working together with your child to come up with a screen time transition plan. Maybe it's easier for them to stop after a certain number of minutes, or alternatively after a certain number of episodes or video game levels. Maybe they'll do well with a 5-minute warning.
So don't suddenly take it away. Give a little warning
Exactly.
beforehand. That's a good idea.
But stick to the warning.
Right, okay.
Maybe certain times a day or certain shows or screen activities should be on or off limits.
Right.
And it's important to make a plan and make it clear that you can always come back to it and revise it later. The plan shouldn't be finite. It should be flexible.
Okay, but at the same time, you did say stick to it if you got a 5-minute warning. So in other words, like if you make a kind of declaration or a promise, keep those.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Yeah.
don't be flexible with everything.
No,
Right.
but let the child know that this is the plan right now.
Right.
And maybe in a couple of weeks, we can discuss it and we can make some changes.
Right. Okay. Cool. So yeah, that's key to remember. So be flexible to a degree, but also don't be so flexible that your child is like, whatever my parent says means nothing.
Exactly.
Right. There's a fine line there, right? Okay. And it seems like putting fair restrictions on screen time is important, so the children don't feel like they're being punished for using the screens, because everybody's using screens, right? And reduction is actually a compromise, right?
It is. Children should have input, and experts also recommend considering post-screen activities to ease the transition from screen time to another activity.
Okay, so post-screen activities could be something like maybe, something they would love to do, like homework or doing chores. Would those be post-screen activities?
Actually, I'm glad you brought up homework, because according to the article, cognitively taxing activities like homework or organizing toys or other activities that might require mental focus aren't ideal after screen time.
Oh, so scratch that. Okay, so not homework, not doing
No,
chores. Okay.
Absolutely not. Never homework.
Okay, and that makes sense because their brain has been stimulated, right? So is there any other reason why homework would be a bad idea?
According to experts, screen time overloads the sensory system. It fractures attention. It depletes mental reserves. So moving on to an activity that requires heavy focus and cognitive skills like homework is not a good transition. They instead recommend an activity depending on the child's sensory preferences. So a low energy activity like reading a book quietly for enjoyment or doing a puzzle can be effective transitions. Or for high energy kids, activities like going out for a run or going for a walk, playing a sport is a better transition for a high energy kid.
Right. So it totally depends on what your child's kind of personality is like, I guess, what kind of activities they're into, what their interests are.
Yeah.
So know your child.
Exactly.
You should know your child, right?
You should.
Or make an attempt to, starting now, right?
And after they have this period of non-screen activity, then they can transition into things like doing their homework or studying for a test.
And I'm sure they'll love it. They'll be like, oh, finally, I can do my homework. Right?
Exactly.
I'm sure they look forward to that. And, you made a good point. And my thought was, the screens are stimulating and homework is stimulating, or should be in theory. But it's actually beyond stimulating. These screens are sensory overload.
Yeah.
So they need a break from that.
They do.
Right. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. To kind of recap that, experts are saying that because of this sensory overload, as it were, from the screen, children can't concentrate on their homework properly. So it's really not a good time for kids to do that. And anything they have to think deeply about, they should do something else to kind of give themselves a reset. And then later, if you can convince them to do their homework and study, then do it later, right?
Exactly. But the strongest recommendation from experts is consistency. As with anything, when we tell our kids screen time's over, we really have to mean it.
So don't be flexible then, right?
No.
That's what we're saying. Don't be flexible with that point.
Don't be flexible.
Right.
Of course, this is easier to say and harder to put into practice. If we tell them to put down the phone or tablet and then they whinge or cry or even have a tantrum, and then we change our minds, what happens?
Yeah, I'm experiencing this right now. What does happen?
Well, they learn that all they need to do is whinge and cry or have a tantrum, and then they get what they want.
I love that you say whinge. That sounds so Australian to me. Cool. And we've got that at our household right now. And so what I've tried to find answers for this kind of situation. What do you do when a child cries? The thing I keep seeing over and over again is just don't freak out yourself. Don't overreact to that. Just maybe if they're okay with it, put a hand on their shoulder, put a hand on their back, and just kind of sit with them and let them cry it out, and tell them it's okay. But also, don't make them feel bad about crying.
Well, I think we've talked about this on the show a while back, and we discussed tantrums, and one of the things was to identify the emotion.
Right.
And identify the circumstance. So I can see that you're really sad. I can see that you're really angry. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad because of
this, whatever, situation is, right?
Take your angry time, take your sad time. When you're ready, I'm here to give you a hug.
Right. Yeah, right. Don't kind of just automatically grab them. Once they let you know that it's okay.
Yeah, and just leave them to their emotions.
Right. Because I guess we don't have a lot of time as adults to our own emotions, do we?
No, we don't have time.
Right, so let them enjoy that in a weird way.
And cry in a dark room.
I'm going to do that later when I get home. Actually, now that I think about it, I want to do that. But yeah, let them kind of have time to work these feelings out because maybe as they get older, they don't get much time to do it. So I agree with all of that, everything you just said there. And it's definitely easier to give in to a tantrum than to let it continue. But as you say, this sets a bad precedent if you do so, right?
Yeah, when we're trying to break habits, even though we know the tantrum is coming, it's important to stick to the rule. Experts recommend saying something like, I know this is really hard. You really want to keep watching this show. But in a firm tone, you've got to conclude with, it is time to turn off the tablet.
Right.
What we're trying to do is change behavior and reduce dependency on screens So the first few times it will be difficult and there will be resistance, but eventually the child will learn that they have a set schedule for screen time. And once mom or dad says it's time to turn it off, it's time to turn it off. And this needs to be consistent for both parents.
That's key too. You guys have to get together and decide how you're going to approach this, right? If one parent does it one way and the other parent does it another way, the kids get mixed messages, right?
Exactly. Consistency is something that children need in all areas of their lives where possible, not just screen time. And this is especially true, as we've talked about, for very young children.
And you know, if you do this well, you're kind of setting them up to be better people as adults, because I don't know how many times as I'm riding around the city, I see people walk right through a crosswalk without looking because they're staring at their phone, nearly getting hit by something because they weren't paying attention. Or I see somebody kind of veering left to right on the road, and my first guess is this person's looking at their phone while they're driving. So hopefully if we can kind of get them to break this dependency early on, they'll have the ability as adults as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else that's recommended to avoid this screen time meltdown?
Experts also recommend something that's very simple and effective, which is turning off the autoplay.
Oh, yeah, that's very easy. Yeah, especially on the streaming sites, right, where it's usually preset on to continue to the next video.
Exactly.
Right.
A stopping cue, something like a video or an episode coming to an end, signals to kids that screen time's over and makes it easier to transition away from the screen.
Cool. That's a great idea. And that's something I should probably remember to do. So, Cheryl, again, as always, thank you so much for coming in on a Thursday and talking about what we should do with our children, with our family. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week.
All right. So with that, we're going to take a quick song break. Oh, one of my favorites. This is My Best Friend's Girl. Not My Best Friend's Girl. This is the song My Best Friend's Girl by The Cars. Enjoy.
Your Race to the World. BEFM 부산 영어방송.
혹시 지금 운전 중이신가요? 어린이 교통사고 피해자 수는 지난 3년 평균 약 9만 명. 특히 어린이 보호구역 안전기준이 강화된 이후에도 어린이 보호구역 내 사고는 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 스쿨존에서는 반드시 시속 30km 이하 서행, 스쿨존 내 불법 주정차 금지, 차량 출발 전 앞뒤 좌우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참, 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, B&K 부산은행과 함께합니다.
Electric kickboards and electric bicycles are common on the streets these days. With the increased use of personal mobility devices, the number of accidents and deaths have reportedly increased significantly.
Personal Mobility Patrol Mode.
I don't need to wear a safety helmet because I'm only riding a short distance.
Wear a safety helmet. When you drive your personal mobility devices, you have to wear a safety helmet.
Hey, I rented an electric kickboard. Let's ride it together.
Okay, you drive in the front, I'll get in the back.
Follow the number of passengers. Only one person can ride an electric kickboard and electric wheel parallel car.
Follow the rules of personal mobility devices and drive safely. This campaign is brought to you by BEFM 부산영어방송.
The time is now 3 o'clock.
Welcome back to the 2 p.m. Reboot. This is the second hour of the show. I'm your host, Casey McKeever. You just heard the song Glass House by Joe P. Joe P is an indie alternative artist from Asbury Park, New Jersey. I'm familiar with that place because of Bruce Springsteen. Maybe you might have heard of him. But Joe P describes this song as a song about the physical proof we leave behind in the wake of relationships. Interesting. So in other words, we often think about relationships and leaving them as what we leave behind emotionally, but this is about physical proof. After the pandemic disbanded his longtime band, Joe P found comfort in his New Jersey basement studio, creating deeply personal music that gained the attention of millions online. I wonder how his band did before that. That's interesting. So, his band probably, it says his longtime band, right? So they were probably working for a long time with the hopes of getting attention. And then he ends up getting a lot of attention from his solo work in a basement during a pandemic. So weird how things work out, right? His answer after he got the question, if you have time off in a city, what's your favorite thing to do? He says, I love visiting cool little clothes shops because I like the randomness of what you might find. Maybe the most perfect cool sweater or cool pants, and you just throw that in your suitcase for the rest of the tour. So I love doing that. That's cool. I can relate. Anytime I travel, and if I buy something like this trusty backpack I have sitting right next to me that I bought in Guam, which it has a name brand on it, I'm sure it's not really that name brand. But I've had this backpack forever, and sometimes when I think about, where I got it and where it came from, it just kind of makes me feel nice. I don't know. The same thing with clothing, too. There's like certain shirts or hats that I've bought in a place, and when I see it or when I wear it, I'm kind of like instantly reminded of that place. I like that. So I wonder if you have things like that too. Welcome to the program, everybody. This is the 2 p.m. Reboot. You're listening to us here on BEFM 90.5 in Busan and 103.3 FM if you're in Gijang, Jeongwan, and Noksan areas. In Seoul, we're on TBS EFM 101.3 FM, and in Gwangju, we're at GFN 98.7 FM. Thanks for joining us wherever you may be. We've got a lot for you still left on the show today in the second hour. Yes, we're in hour number 2. Our daily list will be coming up first. We have a list for everything. Today, we've got something that's, I think, very important, something that everybody should know, but also people should talk about, because when you make driving mistakes, you might be putting somebody else's life in danger as well as yours, right? And as a long-term resident of Busan, long time as well, I can honestly say driving in Busan can be a little bit hectic. And sometimes I think people are just not really thinking about where they're at and what they're doing at the moment. And they might not even realize what mistakes they're making when they're driving. So today we're going to talk about common driving mistakes that put you in danger. So the key point of that is, yes, you might be in danger too, but you're also probably putting other people in danger. And there's no need for that. We should get safely to wherever we're going, right? That's the idea. We don't want to be in danger at all the time. In danger, what kind of society would that be? We're living in a society. So after the daily list, we've got Inside Korea coming up today as well. And this is where we talk about some news stories and interesting things happening here in South Korea. And we're going to talk about this yellow light idea. When the yellow light comes on at a traffic light, what should you do? Do you go? Do you stop? Is there an in-between? Is there another option? We'll talk about that. And we're also going to talk about a little about Korean culture today. So interesting stuff lined up for that. And my question of the day, of course, we've also got a perfect playlist. Today's perfect playlist, we're going to continue the theme of songs about moving to a new place. So we'll have 2 tracks to listen to. And a couple ones that I think you might be familiar with. So good songs if you're on the move, whether you're moving to a new city, moving to a new country, moving to a new house within the city. Yeah, wherever you might be moving to. And, okay, so for the question for today, the question of the day is, what do you do when traffic lights turn yellow? 신호등이 노란불로 바뀔 때 어떻게 하시나요? Yes, so when it turns yellow, you probably only got like 2 options, right? Do you stop? Do you go? But you can be honest. I'm curious to see how many people are one way or the other? My answer might depend on the situation. If I'm particularly busy or if I'm really trying not to be late somewhere, I might occasionally go through that yellow light, perhaps a tad faster than I should. Now, I'm not the only one. I watch how people drive out there. But if I am not in a hurry, and I know that's a terrible answer, in general, if I see a traffic light turn yellow and I feel like it's a safe place for me to stop, I do so. But I'm curious about you. What do you usually do when you see that light turn yellow? You can send us in your answers at 샵9050 or pound 9050 for 100 won. You can reach us on Kakao Talk for free if you just search BEFM or 부산영어방송 and add us there. And we also have a smartphone app. If you go to the App Store on your phone, just search BEFM or 부산영어방송 there. Download the app. You can log in and leave us some comments. Plus, you can carry us with you and listen to our fine program and all the programs on the radio for free and enjoy. So yeah, please do that. And while you think about your behavior as a driver and when the light turns yellow, we'll take a quick song break. This will be We Didn't Start the Fire by Fall Out Boy. And then we'll be back with our daily list. Welcome back to the 2 p.m. Reboot. That was Fall Out Boy with We Didn't Start the Fire. In fact, that was the Billy Joel song, but an updated version of it. Different lyrics and whatnot. Interesting. I had never heard that before. But now it's time for our daily list. For today's daily list, common driving mistakes that put you in danger. Let's talk about this because we need to make sure we all drive safely because of course, for ourselves, we don't want to get into an accident or get hurt, but we definitely don't want to inflict any problems or pain or injury on anyone else, right? So it puts us in danger, but also other people as well. This is the one that bothers me the most. Number 1. So we'll count up, yes? Will they get progressively worse or better? I think this is the worst one. Driving while distracted. I'm going to say yes. This is number 1. This is the one I notice. People use smartphones all the time. I see people walk across the street without even checking to see if a car is coming or a bike is coming for that matter. Definitely check for the bikes. And, if you just stay glued to your phone all the time, you're not going to be aware of what's going on around you. So if you're, that's one of the main ones is smartphones. So if you're driving, please don't pick up your phone. Even if you find yourself at a stoplight and you got a second or, 30 seconds or whatever it is, don't resist the urge to pick up your phone. Because one thing I notice is a lot of times these days, people will slowly take off from when the light turns green at a stoplight. They'll leave a little bit of time before they move. And it's obvious that they're just not paying attention. And then the people behind them start honking their horn because they're impatient and they want to get going where they're going. It's not good. So obviously don't use your smartphone while you're driving. But what if you're just eating? I mean, I have been guilty of this in the past where I'm trying to get from point A to point B and I'm hungry and I don't have a lot of time and I get something to eat. And I'm like, all right, I can just eat this sandwich or maybe a hamburger or something like that while I drive. Don't do it. If you need to eat first before you start to drive again so you can give your full attention to the road. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, this is in the United States, 3,166 people died in 2017 as a result of driving while distracted. What can happen? This happens, and I see this a lot when I'm behind people who suddenly swerve to another lane or just kind of recorrect themselves. What happens is they're not looking where they're going, and then something just, catches their attention, and they don't realize that the road has started to curve slightly or that there's another car that's passing them. And I've seen some really close calls where there has almost been a collision because somebody obviously was not paying attention. So do not drive while you are distracted. Pay attention at all times. 2 hands on the wheel, by the way. Okay, number 2, speeding is another one of the most common driving mistakes that put you in danger. Speeding is something, especially when we're late or trying not to be late. Well, it seems like the solution at the time. I can vouch for this. You can get a traffic ticket at the very least, or you can get yourself into an accident. So whatever the posted speed limit is within the city, in most places it will be either 30 or 50 kilometers per hour in Busan. There are some places that might be up to 60. And I'm talking about, regular streets, not highways. Whatever the speed limit is, maintain that speed until you reach your destination. One thing that tends to happen here is there's, speed cameras every so often, and people know where the speed cameras are, so they will slow down to that speed for the camera, and then as soon as they pass the speed camera, they'll take off like they're in a race and repeat the step until the next camera. Okay, well, why is that bad? Because when you go fast, the faster you go, the harder it is to come to a stop completely and safely. Add to that when you got bad weather like rain or any kind of adverse conditions on the road, maybe there's like sand, something that has been spilled in construction areas. The more problems like that you have on the road, that adds to your braking time as well. And I've seen plenty of people just No, not even big accidents sometimes. Just clearly somebody was going too fast and were not able to stop in time to avoid hitting the car in front of them. And slow down. I think that's the key there. Yeah, you got the point. Slow down. The kind of the opposite of this at number 3 is having a slow reaction time. So what do I mean by that? In other words, your reaction time, that means the amount of time that it takes you to react to something that makes you need to stop or to turn a corner or to do something to avoid an accident. So reaction times, technically, I mean, when we get older, they perhaps will slow down a little bit, but there are other things that can affect your reaction time. I think this probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway because, obviously this is something that people do. If you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, do not drive. Obviously, that should be the case, but there are police out there on the weekends at night for a reason. There are people who are doing that. And I notice when I typically drive home, I would say after midnight, if I'm going home from a long distance, perhaps I have a gig or something on the weekend, and I can tell that there are people out there driving who are definitely seem to be under the influence. And it could be something other than drugs or alcohol. It could be medical. It could be medical related, not illegal drugs. I mean, it could be medicine that you are supposed to take for a medical condition or that you're feeling sick. They usually say on the labels if you should not drive if you take that medication. Please follow that advice. It's just not worth it to get into an accident, All right, I'll stop preaching. I feel like I'm preaching right now. Number 4, using your signal is important. That's why you have them, a left turn signal and a right turn signal. One of the most common driving mistakes that can actually put you in danger is not using your turn signal. So when you change lanes or if you're going to make a turn, whether that's a right turn or left turn, please use your signal. There's something that happens here in Busan where I've seen this, where especially when there's a lot of traffic and a lot of cars kind of close together, and somebody will put on their turn signal because they want to merge into another lane, right? And that's often a key or a signal for other drivers to speed up and not let that person get in. Come on, that's not helping anything either, because that person is doing the right thing at least by putting their signal on. And if we do that, if every time somebody puts on their signal and then you rush to try to block them, that's going to lead to people not wanting to use their signals. I think that's something that goes on here. Please do not do that because we need to use signals. That's the whole point of them. Cars are big. If a car suddenly turns into you, it hurts. Trust me, it's happened to me. My leg is still recovering from getting literally hit by a car. And the way you just never think about how much cars really weigh until one is right on top of you. And then you realize, oh, wow, this is a dangerous, dangerous piece of machinery. And I do see people especially making right turns. I don't know why that's the one, but making right turns without a turn signal. I see it a lot at intersections. I see it when people come out onto main roads. Please use your turn signal. There are a lot of motorcyclists out here who are guilty of that as well, where they will they turn on their warning flashers, their hazard flashers, which to me makes absolutely no sense. I guess it's like a premature apology. Watch out, I'm about to do something crazy, so here come the crazy lights. If you're going to make a right turn, use your right signal. If you're going to make a left turn, use your left signal. It's pretty simple. If you put on your warning flashers, I know that seems to be something that people do here when they are going to suddenly park on the side of the street or in an emergency area. Okay. I understand turning on your warning, your hazard lights. I think this is the technical term for them in North America. Your hazard lights, they're meant to be turned on when you have some kind of emergency, when your car is maybe broken down on the side of the road. But before you pull over to the side of the road, indicate which way you're going to go. Are you going to go to the right side or the left side? When you put on the hazard lights, there is no clear indication which way you're going. It's just kind of haywire. I don't know. It's like, what is this person doing? I don't understand. So please use your turn signal. Even if there's no one behind you. This is something that I intentionally make myself do, so it's a habit. I don't care. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. There's nobody behind me. My hand automatically hits the turn signal when I'm going to make a right or a left. And that's fine. It's not like your light bulb is going to burn out any faster. I don't think. And even if it does, who cares? It's a good habit. Please use your turn signal. That's why we have them. Some places also do have heavy penalties and fines for drivers who do not use their turn signals. So it's a good habit. That way, if you find yourself in New York City, you don't get yourself a traffic ticket for not using your turn signal when you turn right. They have cameras, as far as I remember, in New York and other places as well on the highway. So if you don't use your signal, you might get a ticket in the mail, and they're expensive in the U.S. Traffic tickets are, wow, I remember like a minimum of like $100. So yeah, just build yourself good habits. That's the idea. Okay. Number 5, here we get to it. Okay, number 5, zipping through yellow lights. Something that people commonly do. The purpose of a yellow light is to warn drivers to slow down and be prepared to stop. However, a lot of drivers like to rush through the yellow light because they want to see if they can get through that intersection without having to stop at that red light. And here's where it gets a little bit tricky. I think there are some perhaps cultural differences, some regional differences. Running a yellow light may not be illegal in all places, but it's still one of the most typical driving errors that people make. If you're not careful, you could actually end up causing an accident by doing that. So unless you absolutely cannot stop safely, unless you're going to put yourself in the intersection by stopping, you should always slow down and stop when the traffic lights turn yellow. My fellow North Americans, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the yellow light in Korea is very short. The time seems to be really quick between a light turning yellow and turning red, whereas at least in the United States, the yellow light seems a little bit longer. I know that where I lived in the United States in the Southeast, the traffic lights, they seemed like they were taking a longer time because the speed limit was usually a little bit higher. There's a lot of rural areas and cities that aren't so big. So within the city, you might be able to drive, 55 seemed like a normal speed limit within a city. So 55 miles per hour. Oh dear, my brain's going to explode. What would that be, like 80 kilometers per hour maybe? I'm going to do a quick search to find out, make sure I'm not lying. So let's see. So 55 miles per hour. I'm going to guess that's, roughly around 80 something. So it's a little bit faster than people are supposed to drive here within the city limits in South Korea. So perhaps that's the reason that the yellow light might take a little bit longer. But, that's no excuse anyway. Once you see it turn yellow, as long as, don't slam on your brakes is not the point. You're not supposed to slam on your brakes and suddenly brake. But yellow means the red light's coming, so be prepared to stop. So let's see, 55 miles per hour to kilometers per hour. Maybe you're better than math. Oh, okay, I was close. So 55 miles per hour is around 88 kilometers per hour. So that's pretty fast. Thus, I got used to having a little bit longer of a yellow light time before it turned red. So when I first came to Korea and started driving, I noticed oh, wow, that's fast. It really changes quickly. So I think what that means is in Korea, in most cases, when you see that yellow light, it just means prepare to stop. Slow it down and get ready to stop. Anyway, it's never really a good idea to try to outrun the yellow light because perhaps it might actually vary depending on the time of day. In some regions, they do that where the yellow light might turn faster than others. I've noticed that within Busan, in the city, certain places seem to have a quicker yellow light turn to red light than other places. Just again, good habits. Make good habits for yourself. So let's take a quick song break. We're going to listen to I Remember Everything. Can you remember everything? Good timing. PD, good choice. This song is I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan featuring Casey Musgraves. And after that, we'll be back with Inside Korea.
Vodka and whiskey's gonna ease my mind. Beach towel dress on the drying line. Do I remind you of your daddy in his 88 Ford? Labrador hanging out the passenger door. The sand from your hair is blowing in my eyes. Blame it on the beach, grown men don't cry. Do you remember that beat down basement couch? I'd sing you my love songs and you'd tell me about how your mama ran off and pawned her ring. I remember.
All right, that was I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan featuring Casey Musgraves. And you're listening to the 2 p.m. Reboot with Casey McKeever. Now it's time for Inside Korea. And this is where we talk about some important stories or news events or things happening in the country we live in. We've been talking today about driving a lot. Our first story today is yellow light just turned on. Should I go or stop? And this is a story that came out in Korean media recently, and it was all about this idea. What do you do when the light turns yellow and you're in that dilemma zone where it's too late to stop before the stop line? Would you stop or speed up? So actually recently, South Korea's top court ruled that drivers must stop, and this has rekindled a long-standing debate within the country. In its decision early in May concerning a case involving a car driver who chose to continue through a yellow light and collided with two motorcyclists in 2021, the Supreme Court in Korea stated that when the yellow light turns before a car enters the intersection, the car must stop. Failure to do so should be regarded as a violation of traffic law. So why is this a big deal? Well, this actually overturned a lower court's decision that sided with the driver and acquitted the driver of a traffic law violation in that particular case. The driver said that the car would have ended up stopping in the middle of the intersection if it had stopped for the yellow light. So this is where it gets confusing, right? So the court did not elaborate on what they should do once the car was stationary in the middle of the intersection, only that they should stop. So yeah, what are you supposed to do? Back up to the stop line? What if there's a car behind you already? So there's a lot of questions, and apparently drivers here are sharply divided about it. Some say this should serve as a wake-up call to many drivers who speed up at the yellow light. Others say that they are now more confused and don't know what to do. According to Yoon Suk-hoon, who's 34 and works for a marketing firm, a yellow light means to stop, not to hurry through. When I see a yellow light, I normally stop. I don't hesitate about whether to go or not. And like I said before, like a yellow light in Korea, often you don't have much time before it turns into a red light. So when you see that yellow light, just kind of accept that I'm going to have to stop. Unless you're under the light already. If you're already into the intersection, I don't know why you should stop there. But according to Jung Kyung-il, who's a lawyer specializing in traffic accidents, drivers passing through intersections on a yellow light are typically divided into two types of people. Those who accelerate to pass quickly because they fear the light will change. That one you're probably not supposed to do at all. As far as I understand, if you see that yellow light, you're not supposed to speed up. The other group is those who slow down with their foot on the brake. The Supreme Court's judgment encouraged the latter behavior. According to the lawyer, you should slow down with your foot on the brake. According to Jung, drivers should adopt a driving culture where they decelerate rather than accelerate when anticipating a signal change at intersections. And this actually, the top court's decision requiring the stop at a yellow light is not the first of its kind. Earlier in 2016, a car collided with another vehicle at an intersection during a yellow light, and the court ruled that a driver cannot decide whether to stop or proceed when the light changes to yellow before entering the intersection. What does that mean? Okay, in other words, that means drivers just have only one choice. You must stop. According to Park Ji-eun, who's driven a car for 10 years, she cannot understand the Supreme Court's verdict. It could be understandable if traffic signs here showed how many seconds are left before the light changes. In reality, we don't have that system. So when all cars stop suddenly at yellow lights, it could cause traffic accidents. Their judgment, and she's referring to the Supreme Court's judgment, seems to be detached from reality. Well, there you go. So it's apparently not clear. It's a bit of a thing to discuss. We need to talk about this, right? So according to the government of Queensland, Australia, apparently this is not only an issue in South Korea. Their figures are used in some driving textbooks here. They calculate the minimum stopping distance at 40 kilometers per hour to be 26 meters. According to lawyer Han Moon-chul, the court's ruling could be considered very dangerous, as it could be interpreted that a driver always has to brake even if the stop line is close. There you go. So I think we have to use judgment, our own personal judgment. If you see the yellow light, don't speed up. But if you see the yellow light and you're already going through the intersection, are you going to suddenly brake and cause an accident behind you? I don't know. Tricky. So I'm curious to see what your opinion of this is. But according to the Supreme Court of Korea, when you see that yellow light, it is time to stop. Your thoughts on the matter? I'm curious. Our second story for today, bright, fluffy, and cute. Why are mascots so popular in Korea? And you can see mascots, especially cartoon-like mascots, everywhere all over Korea, right? There's a lot of reasons that they're popular here. There was a discussion in the article about influence from Japan, a lot of the animated characters and mascots that are there as well. But interestingly, I was curious about this. Like, why do they use them in subways and things like that? Or the police, right? You'll see kind of cute little characters. And that's the answer, because they're cute. Apparently, in Korean culture, just being cute is a way to get attention. And a lot of government branches have jumped on that bandwagon. They're like even Statistics Korea. they had an alien-like creature named Sigma, which had Sigma-shaped ears, according to its name. And there are others as well. The National Tax Service, the Ministry of National Defense, they all have their own cute little mascots. And that's the reason, is that they get attention. So a lot of times these mascots are used when they want to promote some kind of safety campaign or for educational purposes, especially when targeting children, but not just that. So they'll have, for example, cute little subway characters who promote subway etiquette, like having, what's the right way to sit or what's the right way to get on and off the subway. And the idea is that because these mascots do get so much attention, they're successful. So they mentioned in one case that in a particular area of Korea that the characters Pokey and Goldie are already known by their preschool and elementary school students in that area. So that means, oh, okay, our campaign is working. Even the kids know what these characters' names are. So people are paying attention to the mascots. So notice that when you're out there driving safely, of course, when you're driving safely, you'll see, maybe when you're at a construction site or a police patrol zone, you'll notice these little mascots out there. And that's the reason they're out there, is because people pay attention to them. It's a way to ensure that people get the message that the mascots represent. So there you go. A little bit about Korean culture today. Very interesting stuff there. But let's take a quick song break. We're going to listen to We're Not in Love Anymore by Knox featuring Charlotte Sands, and then we'll be back with your perfect playlist. All right, that was We're Not in Love Anymore by Knox featuring Charlotte Sands. You're listening to the 2 p.m. Reboot with Casey McKeever. And now it is time for our perfect playlist. We do this every Monday through Friday. We give you 2 songs about a theme, and this week's theme has been songs about moving to a new place. Our first song today is Moving On Up by M People. This hit burst onto the music scene in 1993, and it quickly became a defining anthem of the 90s. It's got an infectious beat, it's got uplifting lyrics. What more do you want? And that captures the optimism and resilience of that era. The track was a standout on their album Elegant Slumming and won them a Mercury Prize and solidified M People's place in British musical history. The song's success propelled the band to international fame, especially because of its message of overcoming adversity and embracing change, which resonated with a wide audience. Our second song for today is Life is a Highway by Tom Cochrane, and this is a classic rock anthem written and recorded by the Canadian musician Tom Cochrane, released in 1991 as part of his album Mad Mad World. The song quickly soared to success, becoming a defining hit of Cochrane's career. It was all over advertisements for what I can remember as well. It's got a catchy chorus, an upbeat rhythm, and Life is a Highway basically captures that essence of adventure and the spirit of perpetual motion. Basically, the idea of the song is relating life to a road that's meant to be traveled fully and, of course, carefully and safely at the same time, right? So our songs for today's perfect playlist, Moving On Up by M People, followed by Life is a Highway by Tom Cochrane. Welcome back to the 2 p.m. Reboot. You just heard Life is a Highway by Tom Cochrane. Before that was Moving On Up by M People, and that'll do it for our perfect playlist for today. And we also have to wrap up the show for today. Of course, the 2 p.m. Reboot will be back tomorrow at 2:05 p.m. I've been your host, Casey McKeever. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll leave you with one last song for today. This is Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes, and we'll see you tomorrow.